Alright, welcome back. Hello, my name is Myre, and today we're going to be checking out ISC inside Star Citizen's dynamic range video. People have been saying this is a really good one, so let's go ahead and watch it for Star Citizen.
Right now, we're in the process of improving Xenothreat.
One of the reasons we want to do this event again is because we've always known our community is fantastic. They need a chance to play together, and that's what we tried to do with this.
Dynamic events are things that draw people into the game. They could be large, they could be small. It's also useful for testing core systems like the law system, spawn timers, the cargo system, ship-to-ship communication, your HUD UI. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
Yeah, Xenothreat was a really cool event, you know, to get the ball rolling with the ball rolling with all these dynamic events things, and you know, Tony Z has talked about like what they want to do forwards. But yeah, let's keep going.
The remaster of the Xenothreat event has so many improvements based on the feedback from the last event.
There was a kind of reaction to the way the phases, as we call them, the resupply phase and then the showdown phase,
which was previously broken into two pieces.
You were ramping up to a big fight, and then it just repeated the resupply, and then you moved to showdown, and it was just a big fight, and it was a big fight for days on end.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, Xenothreat was a good event for what it was, and they had these phases, and you know, like the phase 2 was, of course, to go ahead and get those boxes from Starfarers. Phase 3 was the fight. You know, it wasn't without its shortcomings, but they had like this whole post-mortem thing as well, where they talked about what they wanted to do differently. But yeah, I mean, like, let's not say what it wasn't, you know.
Now is that basically you are resupplying the javelin that will then take you to the battle. And should you do a really bad job of keeping its health up, what you'll end up with is a smoking javelin on the other side.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that's the major, like I'd say the headline change to the event itself. But we've made so many other fixes.
We have made changes to the hostility system.
The AI would remember that you'd done something bad to them, and even if they were busy, say the Javelin was busy fighting Xenothreat, it could be like 15 minutes, half an hour later, that it remembers, you know, that you're someone who shot it and starts attacking you, and you have no idea why.
Okay.
Now we've put this decay in. What it means is if you do go above a friendly fire threshold, you will turn hostile, but that the length of time you'll remain hostile will depend on how many times you did you sustain fire on them. We've also massively reworked the way friendly fire works, because previously there was just one set of friendly fire for everything in the game. Now it's split into AI, which we're much more lenient with, and players, which we obviously have to be a lot less lenient with.
A lot more strict, because, you know, like if you have like one of the explosive, like ballistic weapons or whatever, like a tiny bit of friendly fire can go a long way, you know?
One of the other ways we'll be improving Xenothreat is with new dialogue.
We had players who weren't quite sure of what they had to do from moment to moment.
The game is so deep, but maybe people aren't understanding that, like, 'cause it's the first time we've done it. Like, you can scan these wrecks and you can see that there are still cargo aboard and that there are enemies aboard before you even go on, because that was one of the big complaints, like they'd get to a wreck and find it empty. So
Yeah.
there's now dialogue lines reminding you can scan these things before you're even anywhere near them.
You know, I don't think I ever actually scanned a wreck during Xenothreat, but that wasn't the biggest issue for me in Xenothreat. The big issue was that, like, you know, players in general, you know, this entire time up until Xenothreat, they've all been conditioned to play by themselves and do things, you know, in a slightly more selfish way. Hey, get this box from A to B. So when you had a mission where you had to get boxes from a Starfarer to another ship, people would try and steal the boxes from each other, even though they were going to the same location. So there needs to be more communication, that, you know, you're all in it together and that you should be communicating and you should be collaborating, because that was kind of annoying where, like, you know, you'd like have your ship pointed towards the Starfarer and somebody would try and like muscle you out of the, out of where you were, where you were parked or like trying to grab a box, even though they weren't getting paid more or they weren't getting more reputation because of it, and they were just kind of slowing things down and making it suck for everybody. So if they can get like some sort of voiceover line or some more text or whatever, I know Anna Dimitriou did a lot of lines for this, but not many of them actually triggered, and she did some performance capture for this as well, I believe too. So it'd be cool to see some of that coming into future Xenothread events, because it does sound like they are working towards bringing this back, because again, Luke said that they were, like they were actively improving it,
One of the main criticisms we got was that there were no rewards.
We're now going to be giving rewards based on reputation, because we've added reputation to Xenothreat.
Okay.
With the addition of reputation, we're able to start using that to build reputation with the CDF, the Civilian Defense Force.
They need to be very careful about how you grind reputation though, because again, how I was saying about how players were very selfish in the past, and this is all about, working together. How do you get reputation during the Xenothreat event? Because like, if you are at the Starfarer and like, somebody, some group are putting boxes onto it, and then you decide, I'll help that group, and you get nothing out of that, that would really, really suck,
And like the more missions you do,
like reputation will make it inherently selfish. Exactly.
The better you do within missions with these events, the higher you'll go up through the stand-ins with them. And depending on what stand-in you're at when the event ends, you'll get various different rewards.
Right. I mean, because the converse obviously is like, how would you solve it? I mean, like, would you make it so that you get reputation by just standing there in the wreck? If you did that, then you'd get a whole bunch of AFK people just standing around doing absolutely nothing, like in, like, let's say World of Warcraft or whatever, like in the battlegrounds. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would solve that sort of situation with a group objective, but it'd be cool to see what they did.
So we're really looking forward to having the event work alongside all of the new systems we have coming online, plus all of the things we've added to
They
the
might
event
just have to do
itself.
that, Red Dawn.
So we have, alongside, we're going to have the capacitors, we've got new scanning and pinging.
It's not just an event, it's not just a weak event that we then throw away or anything like that. We have continued to work not to improve Xenothreat, but to improve the next fleet battle.
The next great fleet battle. Ninetales,
So
oh yes,
our
of course.
next
The
dynamic
Ninetales
event is going to
lockdown.
be Ninetales Lockdown. In Ninetales Lockdown, the Ninetales criminal gang is going to lock down a space station
Which
under
one?
the control of Crusader security. And both sides will then recruit players to help them to either end or continue the lockdown. That's actually going to allow us to do some really interesting stuff with combining PvP and PvE content.
I love the idea of being able to pick a side. And most people are going to be picking Ninetales.
Seeing how you all kind of interact with each other and honestly fight against each other in a more controlled ring. Ninetales basically breaks down into 4 phases. In the first phase, which we call the prologue, we're basically trying to get players online and let them know that something is about to happen.
Okay, so like the other one.
Eventually, after phase 1 has been running for long enough, it kicks into phase 2. In phase 2, Crusader is aware that something is causing a quantum blockade around a station, and is making it so that it is quite dangerous and time-consuming to get to and from that station. They recruit players to protect ships that they will send out to scan for whatever is causing that quantum blockade. However, on the other side of things, Ninetales is going to be recruiting to have players go and destroy those ships, and seeing those two sides kind of collide with each other is where we're hoping to get a lot of the interesting gameplay in that stage.
Okay. Fingers crossed for
We've seen some
performance,
really interesting stuff in phase 2, just from player tactics and such, that have been very enjoyable to watch. For some of our QA testing, actually, They employed at one point, because the scanning ships are somewhat fragile, a hammerhead is almost a shield wall, physically blocking missiles and fire against those scanning ships and deploying chaff and such in order to reroute the missiles, which made for some very interesting tactical discussions right before they would test for that day.
Okay.
We're hoping that players will begin to develop similar strategies in order to counter each other in this more sandbox style of PvP.
I mean, like, Hammerhead is a pretty strong, boat at the moment, right? Because you can now shoot torpedoes out the sky. Although we'll have to see what that's like with a new missile operator mode and missile system coming in with 314, because that could change things again. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to be trying the Ninetails side. If you can only pick one side, it's definitely Ninetails. But like, yeah. Right now, I feel the Hammerhead's in a really good position in the game.
As for phases 3 and 4, I'd love to give you more detail, but Jared won't let me.
Oh yeah, also that was literally a herald firing guns at a ship, because I don't know.
In order to counter each other.
Well, I mean, it's maybe. I mean, like scanning 314, this is like a big maybe, right? But scanning 314 is coming out. Maybe the herald is actually useful for scanning. Who knows, right?
In this more sandbox style of PvP. As for phases 3 and 4, I'd love to give you more detail, but Jared won't let me. We want to leave some things for you guys to discover, and there are little pieces of content scattered throughout the event that aren't going to be explicitly handed to you or told to you in a mission description that I'm really excited to see you guys discover as you're playing through this over and over. It is a smaller event. It is only going to last for about 3 to 4 hours, most likely, be completed over the course of an afternoon, and it is the first of many events that we're hoping to kind of build into a stable of these smaller events so that we can make it so that this weekend is that one and the next weekend is the next, just to keep players coming back to the game.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense, because the moment you oversaturate a thing like, like any event, people will be like, oh, okay, and then they'll stop doing it. And like, if it's more acute like that, then people will be like, more eager to try it out because it'll go away soon. That typical kind of FOMO like mentality. But yeah, I mean, 4 hours is still pretty long, and is longer in general than the Xenothreat event was. The Xenothreat event, I believe, could be done in like half an hour to 45 minutes.
Ninetails Lockdown is slated for release with 3.14. We hope to run it several times throughout the course of that patch and in future patches as well. We're really excited to see you guys play it. We're excited to see which side you pick, be it Crusader or Ninetails. And coming up next, Jumptown 2, so keep an eye out for that.
Jumptown 2! Alright, so Jumptown 2 sounds like it'll likely just be this, but planet side, which isn't a bad thing. Like localized gameplay in a place, getting players to actually do something different in the game, in a cool way. Maybe picking sides again, who knows? But I'm looking forward to seeing this. This is actually really cool information.
Perhaps one of the biggest additions to the Star Citizen universe this year has been the inclusion of our new dynamic events system, where teams are continuing to work improving old returning favorites, as well as developing new adventures alike. And yeah, we're going to talk about Jumptown 2 when the time is right, don't you doubt it. But before that and up next, it's sprint report time, so let's get to it. Let's start things off by jumping back into the world of brand recognition and logo generation with this review of several new corporations making their way into the persistent universe alongside the related gameplay systems.
The Tax Collection Bureau. Okay, all right. I mean, like, we've been needing a money sink in this game. I don't know what Eclipse Mutual's all about. Cousin Crow's Custom Craft obviously is the company in the game that's there to do things like retrofit the Kraken to the Kraken Privateer, so you can go there and do things like change out the engine on the M50 for the I guess the modernized 100i looking engine instead, and other things as well. Maybe also it'll likely be the place you'll have to go to in the future to do things like paint your ship or change out other parts as well. Like how you have modular ships in the game. Cousin Crow's is likely going to be that place to go to.
Like Eclipse Mutual, the high-end personal health insurance designed to allow for a wide range of features covering everything from the number of times you can be cloned to a robust choice of replacement limbs and
Wait a minute, this is very important information. Also, is this a card you have to hold? Like in Cyberpunk? Player 01 health insurance, minimal genetic deviance. Oh, it is a card. This is somebody's like medical like data. Minimal genetic deviance, so they haven't died so much. Preferred hospital spawn, plastic surgery is included, so you can change the look of your face. That's actually kind of funny, you know, like in other MMOs you literally have to pay money and stuff, and you probably will have to do in this game as well, who knows, right? But like in other MMOs, to change the look of your character, you know, their face, for some reason it's always like, you know, a paid thing or like a in-game thing to a barber. So this is going to be that in Star Citizen. This is our first time seeing this particular thing in there. So preferred hospital spawn, obviously it'll tell you like, you know, I want to spawn a Grim Hex, I want to spawn in like, you know, put Olisar. The genetic deviance thing is an interesting thing. So for the people who don't know what that is all about, basically in Star Citizen, how you respawn, how you die. So like, if you die out in the field, like you die out in the field, health to 0, your character is incapacitated, and then you either wait for somebody to resurrect you like any other MMO, or you choose to respawn at a hospital, right? But you're not just respawning in a hospital like a, oh, wow, how did I get here? Like, you literally spawn from like a piece of like, I guess, you know, like you go to a hospital and you'll register to have your clone be set there. And then the only way I can understand how the genetic deviance thing will come into play is if they don't allow you to register to spawn more than once, right? Otherwise, there's no reason why, let's say you know, like, let's say Myre Prime goes to a hospital, right, and gets, you know, like a stem cell out of Myre Prime set and ready to spool into a new Myre, right? There's no reason why they couldn't just get like multiple like different Myres from one Myre Prime. But what it sounds like is like when you spool up Clone Myre, once Myre Prime is gone, then they get stem cells from Clone Myre, and then when that Clone Myre dies, they get stem cells from that one. That's the only way I can see them like doing the whole genetic deviance thing. And it's probably gonna be there in lore because, you know, they'd be like, you're not allowed to spool up more than one because it's illegal, you know, that kind of thing. But isn't the genetic deviance to limit to respawning? It is, yeah, it would make more sense for your character's memory and stuff. So I don't know how memory and stuff will come into play. I mean, they're probably just going to say that there's going to be like a chip or something that you can implant into yourself, and that's how your memory is. In other games that do cloning, like in EVE Online, you wear a choker, and that choker is, I believe it's a collar, like a choker that, you know, is hooked up to you, and when you die, it just uploads all those memories from that, you know, body into the next spooled up clone. That's how that works in EVE Online. SC could do something similar. Maybe the Moby class is a bit more sinister than we thought. Who knows? But that's the skinny on genetic deviance as we know it. So when you get too much deviance, you know, like maybe your face will start to vein up Sith style, you know, maybe whatever will happen, your hair color will change, your eye color will change, that kind of thing. And then, of course, when it gets too bad, then death of a spaceman. And I believe that's how that's going to work. Yo, Salty Mike, thank you for the raid.
Number of times you can be cloned, to a robust choice of replacement limbs, and all the way down to preferred hospitals, to maybe even waking up in your own hab. And for those who want to know more, be sure you tune in next quarter ahead of Player Healing's scheduled release in Alpha 3.15.
But that's really cool, the whole idea of having, I mean, again, I don't know what this thing we're looking at right now is, but it'd be kind of cool if it was an actual like card that you could pick up and like go, I've got insurance. You know?
There was also a push on further developing the Tax Collection Bureau, a branch of the UEE government in charge
Mike, welcome.
of tax
Thank you for the raid,
legislation, accumulation, and regulation. But don't worry if you can't pay. The UEE is always looking for volunteer service as a means of squaring your debt to the Emperor.
All right, one more time there, because this is the first time we've heard about this. They're in a carrack, by the way.
Alpha 3.15. There was also a push on further developing the Tax Collection Bureau, a branch of the UEE government in charge of tax legislation, accumulation, and regulation.
Well, I mean, you know how lots of players right now have billions of credits and stuff, and how we don't have a credit sink yet in Star Citizen? I do kind of feel like they've put this in place here so that, you know, like, there's always gonna be somewhere for you to like, I guess, spend money. I don't know. I mean, like, it's a weird one. The Tax Collection Bureau. What kind of in-game applications will this have? Apart from, you know, like bounty hunting, you know, being a bounty hunter for the Tax Collection Bureau, that kind of thing. I don't know.
But don't worry if you can't pay.
But yeah, we
The
do need
UAE
money
is
sinks like
always looking
crazy.
for volunteer service as a means of squaring your debt to the Emperor.
So volunteer service as a means of squaring your debt. So maybe perhaps if you do run into tax debt, then you can become a bounty hunter of that sort or something.
Now,
Who
at
knows?
review time, it was decided option 4 was most in line with existing UEE branding and will proceed further into development.
It looks very similar to other stuff, yeah.
Then we've got Cousin Crows, which specializes in customizing ships with paint jobs and special modifications, as well as crew uniforms and accessories to deck your ship out.
That one looks like Dunkin' Donuts, not Cousin Crows.
Now, some of you will no doubt recognize Cousin Crows as the group responsible for the original
They went
Kraken
for it?
modification. But this logo is in the pipeline at this time for all the other things that we just mentioned.
Okay.
And at review, the thinking was that we'd go with option number 1. Moving along to VFX news, the team has been working on an update to the thruster dust system that converts the existing particles from a radial effect to a new directional one that's actually based on the thruster direction to any surface normal that it may be hitting at any given moment.
That's really cool. I mean, like, so they got this whole like wind entity system that the ships currently in the game actuate. So like when a ship flies over a vista, you can see the wind go with it. It looks like they're now going one step ahead, and so that instead of it just being a generic kind of wind propagation, it's actually coming from the ship from where it looks like it's going, and it's going to show that as well, which is kind of cool.
Now what you're seeing here is the effect changing not only by the raycast angle being perpendicular or parallel to the surface, but also by the strength of the thruster output, and soon by the type of the surface itself and the force of the surrounding wind volume. Now, as they continue to push this tech towards its gold standard, this means the overall effect will be far more accurate to what players expect, and is one more way systemic systems are used to author the Star Citizen universe at every opportunity.
So systemic system. So basically it's saying that this is also part of what you're going to be seeing with cloud tech, with weather tech in the future, and that kind of thing as well. They're all using that same system.
In other VFX news, let's return to the current progress of shipboard fire in the verse. Oh, how I've missed you! With this look at directionality and how it can help inform the player about things like the spread or how it's being affected by the universe around it. Now in this sprint, the team was looking into adding more dynamics and interactability to both the fire and smoke, allowing it to be impacted by the various forces that may occur within a ship.
Okay.
What you're seeing here is a vector field being used to bend the fire in the direction of whatever force we want to apply. Here, switching between a simple radial force that comes out from the middle to a more spiral force, and then back again.
It's kind
Now,
of cool.
the idea for these vector fields is to be spawnable from the particle system itself, making anything from fire extinguishers to full-scale room decompression act upon the flames in a realistic and expected way.
Right, so he explains the application of this right at the end, with the fire extinguishers actually looking like they're pushing the flame downwards, and with like room extinguisher systems also doing stuff. I'm not sure how many ships in the game already have like extinguisher pipes and stuff in them. We do know that the 600i is going into gold standard towards the end of the year, so it wouldn't surprise me if as part of that change to that ship, they'll be adding those things there as well, because the 600i is the ship that they've been testing a lot of this fire stuff on in the past.
We also have this brief look at signed distance fields being used to direct the venting of flames and smoke throughout the hull of a ship.
That's so cool.
And speaking of ships, work is being
That's so cool. Did you saw like the way that like that smoke cloud actually comes from the fire and kind of draws itself towards that door, which I don't think is open, but that's still really cool. It terrifies me though, especially when like, you know, in the future, when you log out, you're just going to be a guy sleeping in bed, especially in like a multi-cruise ship like this. You know, if you're sleeping and you're not wearing a spacesuit and a fire breaks out and you just like you die of the black lung, it's terrifying.
throughout the hull of a ship. And speaking of ships, work has begun on revisions to the Aegis Retaliator,
Okay.
bringing it up to the gold standard, including changes to the internal metrics needed for successful NPC traversal,
Good.
moving the docking collar, adjusting the lift dimensions, and more. Work also continues
Wait.
on the
Okay, so the lift is now central instead of being on the sides. So it looks like they're removing the bilateral lift like you have on like the hammerhead, and they're making it looks like just the one, unless there's one behind us as well. And it looks like maybe there's only one docking port there on that starboard side, or maybe there's another one on the other side. Either way, it's a good change.
adjusting the lift dimensions, and more. Work also continues on the Aegis Redeemer gray box interior, with these looks at the remote turret bay, further changes to the habitation section,
Okay. I think the Redeemer is kind of growing on me, and only because we've started to use the hoplite in RP, and it just, it's kind of cool.
and development of the internal machinery that keeps this floating gunship up in the air.
Okay.
We also have this look at the continuing gray box progress of the Ares Starfighter from Crusader Industries, a ship that's coming together rather quickly based on all the previous work completed for the Mercury and the Hercules.
Meh, it's just a fighter.
Next-
But it does look like it's going to be very close to gold standard out the gate, which is good because, I mean, like, the less ships you have to go back to, the better. Things like the Nova Tonk and the Hercules are more or less gold standard, barring a few things like the state aware buttons and that kind of thing. You can see the component access panels and stuff already there on the Mercury. But I mean, it's a fighter, who cares?
Previous work completed for the Mercury and the Hercules.
It's
Next
a fighter,
up,
who cares?
With work on converting all flyable ships to the canvas-sliced HUD in 3.14 continuing, designers and artists have begun concepting out additional manufacturer-based heads-up displays like this proposal for Drake interplanetary ships.
Yes.
Seen here in several color variations. Now we're still pulling together other proposed layouts and color schemes, but it's another exciting step forward in diversifying the flight experience of our spacecraft, made possible by our UI tech team.
I really do like this. I mean, like, Drake is one of those things where, like, the current HUD, I mean, it doesn't really mesh well with any of the ships in the verse. It's very, like, generic, but that's the idea until they could get to this stage. But I do like this, especially since, like, the HUDs and the radars and stuff on Drake ships are always old school anyway and flat. But this is a really cool way of representing it, with that central MFD that still has things like a compass and everything else, but it looks really rad. I love that. That's really cool.
Tomorrow on Star Citizen Live, we'll have Dan Truffin and members of the EU Persistent Universe feature team on the show to answer questions about their work. And one of the new aspects they're currently working on is loot generation, seen here in testing on Korea Station.
Okay.
Now we'll talk more about how it works, what can be found inside, and how it interacts with the upcoming advances to player inventory tomorrow.
So I laugh because with loot generation, we've kind of come full circle with loot generation. I mean, who can remember like in 2.4 when Luke Presley first put like collectibles in the verse, like with the Radagast and like the tobacco and stuff, and you touch it and you get like UEC. And now it's like we're putting loot back into Korea, but now it's systemic or whatever, and it's taken a while. But I'm happy it's back, this is one of the things that kind of makes Star Citizen kind of different from, I suppose, other styles of, I kind of want to call this an MMO, but an MMO to be, right? But like it'll bring it more into the fold of survival games like DayZ and that kind of thing, where you can actually go salvaging and scavenging, and it's not just all about the FPS, and it's not just all about the mission, but you can take your time and find things that, like are kind of cool and might even give you money.
So check that out. And wrapping
Homestead
things
stuff.
up this week with a look at some environment work, we have this look at potential prop placement overlays for the exteriors of our colonial outposts. An early look at white box progress of the hospital being built out for Grimhex.
Oh yeah, the Grimhex Hospital, which will actually need like all new geometry. It looks like they're actually repurposing the top pads place to add a hospital there, which, you know, works and it's cool. Sketchy as all get out, but cool. Get well? Question mark?
As well as white box progress on the smaller clinics that will populate several of the various space stations found throughout the Stanton system.
It's such a commercial. I mean, like, I'll meet you at the get well.
And lastly, a look at the continuing lighting pass going on throughout Orison.
That's freaking
the upcoming
beautiful.
landing zone for the gas giant Crusader.
I cannot wait for Morphologist's architect reviews on this.
Now we'll be talking more about everything that goes into bringing Orison to life. From the lighting, to the VFX, to the NPC costumes, the signage and the iconography, and even the music next week in our quarterly season finale. So stay tuned for that.
What really strikes me about Orison is the lighting and how the music strikes me. I'm looking forward to it.
So what did we learn this
I'm not taking the piss out of Morphologist. I love his videos, but
week? Well, we learned that dynamic events are not only a fantastic way to add activity and conflict to the players in the persisting universe, they can also move story and features forward for development and provide much needed and essential testing opportunities that may not arise as frequently on their own. That they come in all shapes and sizes, from both weeks long to a simple afternoon, and that their effects in improving the overall persistent universe as a whole persist long after the events themselves conclude.
long.
Now be sure you keep an eye out for the results of all the various Alien Week festivities that have been going on, and remember that Digital Citizen Con is on its way at the end of next quarter.
Next
For
quarter, okay.
Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all next week.
All right, so that was ISC, and some really cool stuff there. I mean, like, as always, but that was a really, really big one. You know, like, after the one about the C2 and, you know, the other one about other stuff, this was a lot of meat. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that whole like system on ships that with the fire and stuff. People were saying, you know, FTL anybody? But at the same time, yes, FTL, but in a 3D game, yes, please. How freaking cool would that be? But I'm also looking forward to things, of course, like the dynamic events. So I think they've done a pretty decent job with it. We have a really nice baseline with Xenothreat, you know, like people didn't hate it, so that's always good. Some more of that, but, you know, more localized, maybe even player driven, maybe even like that kind of thing would be really neat to see in the future. But yeah, all right. Anyway, so to keep things short, thank you everybody for watching, both live on Twitch and also on YouTube, because this will be going there maybe tomorrow. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this and you liked us talking through videos instead of you watching it all the way by yourself, then please feel free to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week for the next one. Ow. Jeez. All right.